First relationship, if you take the volume up, you have to bring the intensity down to go the distance. You only have about an hour to 90 minutes worth of energy in your muscles. So if you all of a sudden go out the first 8 miles faster than you have in training, you're doomed. How do you avoid that from happening? Watch your heart rate monitor. We've given you the tools, now you have to go out and use them, okay? As we were joking earlier, it's hot. You know, for us, for us it's cool because we live in Florida, but relatively speaking, look at how wet you were this morning. I mean, you're working hard. Now, the humidity only makes it worse, as we've discussed. You know, water won't evaporate in a moist environment, so now you have to get into clothing. So you think about it, you've tested your clothing, your shoes, I mean, everything from visors to how you're going to carry your water that we were talking about. I would be as excited as all get out because you've tested your tried and true. You know, the longest run is in the bank now. Now from here, it's just, whoo, you know, like you said, you ran a little bit less this week just to kind of take the pressure off. That's a good thing. Okay, so all of a sudden when you start looking at the race date, I would encourage you to look at it as, go back to your training logs, okay? And you go, gosh, I didn't keep a training log, shame on me. No, just close your eyes, go someplace quiet, go to the beach, and think about what you've done for the last 12 to 16 weeks. For some of you that have been, you've been running for years, go back to the very first one and everything that you had to overcome. You said that you've got a bum ankle right now. How long has it been bothering you? A month. So you've got at least 3 or 4 weeks of, you remember how bad it was when it first hurt. And you've been doing, you know, I heard you say you do the ice therapy, the hydrotherapy. That's cryotherapy, ice and heat, okay? You've overcome a lot already just to be able to get out here. How far did you run this morning? 8. So you've done enough that you can still go 8. When you first heard it, you didn't know if you could even go 8. Perspective is everything, all right? And that's what I want you guys to be thinking about in the big scheme of things is, go back and look at what you've done and utilize that information to create a strategy, formulate a strategy, and don't deviate from it. You know, the biggest challenge, and you guys know that I've been doing this a long time, the #1 reason for failure is deviating from a strategy. Not because I just educated you on it, but somehow, and I hear this all the time, particularly with guys, I'm going to dig really deep on race day. I'm just going to go for it. Your body's in there going, what in the world are you thinking? It isn't going to work, okay? You can't train here and race here. That is a huge common mistake that people make. Like somehow you've got some miraculous pill in your body that all of a sudden can sustain a heartbeat 10 or 12 beats higher 2 hours earlier. You're not going to deliver enough oxygen, you can't get enough sugar in, you can't get rid of lactic acid quickly enough, and then you go, I had a horrible race. No, you just didn't race the way you trained. Because you told me in training you killed it. Some of you are like, man, I'm ahead of schedule, my strength to weight ratios are getting better, I'm doing strength training, I'm doing the soft tissue work, everything's working properly, and then you go out the first 10 miles and you're a hero at mile 10. You're 3 minutes ahead of schedule, you feel great. I want to see you at mile 20. You're walking, you're mad, you're crying, this race stinks. Been there, bought that t-shirt, okay? That's why I don't want you guys to go there. Especially, and I'm not trying to pick on the men, we have pretty big egos. So, you know, the guy that's running in bowling shoes, as I teased you before, that you don't think should be beating you, and you find out he's like an ex-Olympic trial specialist and he's just a little heavy, you know. Don't focus on everybody around you. Race off that heart rate monitor. The other side of the coin is you've got to focus on your strategy and stay ahead of it. If you've tried it in training, you were saying you down the Gatorade at the mobile, you know, and we were talking about it's cold, it's a certain amount, and I'm like, how does it make you feel? He goes, good, all right. Well, wouldn't that be a great place to be at mile 20 instead of being on Struggle Street going, this is the longest 10K of my life? You know, again, been there, bought that t-shirt. The goal is to get, we call that the threshold. Race doesn't even begin until mile 20. For those of you that are running the half, it doesn't begin until mile 10. So your goal is to get to that point as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and then the race gets real, okay? Because if you get there and it's over, then you're walking. What's that? I'm sorry? Yeah. So that's what I want to encourage you guys. When we get into the psychology of it, it's real easy to focus on the fear of failure. It's everywhere. It's people telling you couldn't do it. Maybe you go home to it. That's even worse. I mean, and I'm not trying to pull on your heartstrings. We all have our issues. We all have people that are close to us that are jerks. And, you know, just being blunt, I mean, especially if they're not athletic and you're kind of swimming upstream against them, you go home and there's garbage in the pantry and you know, Doritos taste great. I mean, let's just face it, you know, but it doesn't mean that it's the best pre-run food. So, you know, if you've got your temptations and your trials and you go home to it, and then you've got somebody saying, well, why would you get up at 4:15 in the morning and make breakfast? You're an idiot. You're obsessed. You're a freak. Negative, 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 negative. Okay? One of the things that I would encourage you to do is sit down with a blank piece of paper, okay, and put the name of your event that you're going to do in the center of it. And I would like you to entertain all the positives, everything positive that's happened to you when you started training to get to this point. And I know it sounds crazy, but your music, the food that you eat before, during, and after, the clothes, the shoes, the socks, you know, because it's not how fast you go, it's how good you look. I've told you that before, okay? It's all that matters, okay? Nobody looks at it and goes, wow, that was a fast race. Like, dude, that outfit is cool, okay? They all do. Go watch a race. Stand on the sidelines. No, very, very few people are looking at the times. Most everyone on the side's like, that's cool, okay? So always remember that. Go to Fleet Feet and get some cool stuff. All right, you've worked really hard, so you've earned it, all right? It's like I tease you when we're dealing with weight loss clients. It's not about the weight loss, it's about the journey of getting there. That's why we don't focus on weight, okay? Because once you lose the weight, it's like anticlimactic. So I want you guys to think about, on your piece of paper, put your event in the middle, and on the left side, I want you to think of everything that's contributed. Like I said, music, clothes, food, okay? Who did you train with, okay? Was that person an asset or were they a liability, okay? Because if they were not cool, they need to go on the right side of the page. It's what we call the negative elements of getting here, okay? Because what you want to focus on, and it's hard sometimes, especially when you get into interpersonal relationships where the person is just, you may be this person, so I'm not calling you out because I don't know any of you, okay? I'm just going to call it out. But you know, you get here and it's the person that's complaining, it's too hot, it's too cold, I don't want to run, I stayed up too late, I got drunk last night, this guy's the negative, and you kind of feel like you're carrying the bag of bricks to try to get that person to even get going, okay? But what you have to recognize on race day, you want to stay away from them like the plague. And I'm being as serious as a heart attack. It's what we call a blueprint of success. You want to focus on the elements that you know work, and you want to make sure you avoid everything that's not. If you look at something like food, you know, pancakes sounded good before a run, and then you had GI issues, well, it goes on the right side. It's just a gentle reminder that, oops, and I've seen this a ton of times. We all know not to go to the expo and buy the cool new shoes and race in them the next morning, okay? I have seen athletes who are like sub 3-hour marathoners do it. I saw one guy, he thought the socks were cool. Socks? Can you imagine running with a brand new pair of socks that you've never run before, and you get to mile 8 and your feet are already on fire, blisters are already forming? You own it. I mean, at that point, your feet are going to be bleeding by the time you get done. And this is a guy, again, 252 marathoner. I mean, it's not, and no disrespect to someone that's your first race, but you'd think, oh, well, he knows better. No. So that's why you've got to have, if you have your blueprint on what you've done, nutritionally, clothes, heart rate monitor, please make sure if you don't have a Garmin that charges, replace the batteries both on the chest and in the watch if you have a non-charging unit. Because if it's ever going to die, it's going to die the race day. And normally about 20 minutes before the race starts. Just something about the watches that have a sense of humor, okay? But on the flip side, if you have the Garmin, don't assume it's charged, all right? You know, put all kinds of reminders to keep checking it. Because if you train off of heart rate and you get to mile 18 and it dies, you're gonna be very, very upset. Because now there's that doubt. Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Okay? Now, with that being said, you guys are no longer going to think negative about fear of failure because you're going to follow your strategy, okay? Now you have to focus on you're in the race. Mark my words, because I know the way Jose and Julie are doing the program, you guys are starting to taper down for your races, okay? This is the most dangerous and tumultuous part of an athlete's program because they hate the word taper. Taper and off-season are my two biggest struggles as a coach. Because the whole idea is you've gone, don't raise your hands, but if you've gone through this program to lose weight, okay, you have a lot of demons in your head. A lot of demons in your head, okay? So what ends up happening is now you hear the word taper. Oh my gosh, less volume. All right, so then you want to cut back on your food, and I'm going to encourage you not to because you want to kind of get your blood chemistry. That's like totally psychotic to somebody who's trying to lose weight, okay?